This book, our Constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our Constitution, our people, our Parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, Channel 408 on DSTV.
Dumelang, and welcome to your Parliament, iPalamende, Lakho, Palamente, Yahao. And of course, we are in the studio here at the Parliament TV studio on the precinct. And we've just crossed over from the National Assembly sitting where members are asking questions to the governance cluster. Now, if you want to continue watching those proceedings, you can do so on YouTube at Parliament of RSA. Libito laka ke Tshepo Morie, and I will be your host for this evening. We are coming to you live from Parliament TV at the heart of the precinct right here in Cape Town and on 30 community radio stations all over the country. Now be sure to like and subscribe on all our social media platforms at Parliament of RSA and be part of the conversation. It is, of course, your Parliament, your voice, your future. Now the show is designed to educate our listeners and viewers and to keep you informed about all matters pertaining to Parliament, including the work of parliamentary committees. Now, since the start of the 7th Parliament last year, the National Legislature has strengthened oversight, enhanced public participation, and has been advancing lawmaking processes. And in tonight's show, we review the work of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour, specifically the progress that has been achieved in the implementation of the employment equity. Now, we're being joined for the next hour by the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour, Mr. Boyce Maneli, who will help us understand the committee's work thus far in relation to how employers in all sectors of the economy are implementing employment equity targets. And of course, again, this is your Parliament, your voice, your future. We invite you to participate in our conversation. Now, whether you're watching us on DSTV channel 408, on YouTube and other social media platforms, or whether you're listening on one of the 30 community radio stations, please leave a comment or call in to ask Mr. Boyce Maneli, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour, questions and share your opinion on the employment equity. And you can do so by calling us on WhatsApp on 073 444 9810. That is 073 444 9810. And you can leave a WhatsApp text if you are shy and you don't want to call in. And you can also use our social media platforms, that is on X and Facebook at Parliament of RSA. We'll strive to attend to all questions. Chair, thank you so much for joining us in our studio today.
Thank you for having me, Tshepo, and greetings to the viewers of Parliament TV as well as the listeners from the community radio stations. Thanks.
With that, Chair, let's hit the road running and start with what the role of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour is.
Thank you for asking this question, and I would want to start from a point that before we get to the committee, we are members of Parliament.
Yes.
And members of Parliament have a task of ensuring that they make the laws for the country. Of course, pass the budgets when the need arises, but more importantly also do oversight in the work of the executive. Yes. And that work in the main is informed by the laws that Parliament passes. Of course, in making those laws, we have to also ensure from Parliament the government of the people, by the people, by ensuring that there's public participation in the work of Parliament. And therefore the committees work as those engines of Parliament who will then present reports to Parliament. Narrowing it down to employment and labor, therefore, how we are taking that forward. It's really that the first point would be, as we do the oversight,
Yes.
we are oversighting those legislations, for example, the Labour Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the UI Act that looks at unemployment insurance. We look at the national minimum wage. We also look at, as we will do today, the Employment Equity Act and its implications. Of course, that's what we do. But of course, we are not the executing arm of Parliament. As I said, we are doing oversight. And therefore, we oversight the Department of Employment and Labour in the execution of this work, including its entities, be it the support employment enterprise, what people will usually say SEE, which focuses on people with disabilities. We look at the UIF. We also look at the Compensation Fund, Productivity South Africa. We also look at the SMA as those entities that come before the committee from time to time. So that's what we do from the point of the committee. Of course, it's not just calling them to come in, but we also go out on the ground because constituencies, like I said, you have public participation in the work of Parliament, would also raise how the conditions would be on the ground, and then we'll go in there, also do inspections, and most of the time, as part of our oversight work, it is unannounced visits that we do based on the program of Parliament. And this does not in any way take out the fact that on a day-to-day basis, the execution is done from the other side of the arm of state, which is the executive. Thank you.
Now, with that, Chen, of course, that was such an inclusive answer that you've given. And of course, we're cognizant of the fact that there was a sixth parliament and the legacy report has been adopted and it has been given down to the seventh parliament. With that, Chair, what is the committee now grappling with especially some of the issues that come from the sixth parliament?
I think as a starting point, it's important to indicate that as a recognition of the work that has been done by the sixth parliament, we have been seized with the legacy report, and we have put it in the committee and programmatized the issues that have been raised in that report. Amongst other things are matters that the Auditor General would have raised as it relates to the entities. Of course, if you were to take the UIF and the Compensation Fund in particular, we have flagged them as the committee as an area where we really have to show a turnaround in that. Of course, because of the programs and the services that come out of that. The same as it applies to the sustainability of the SEE. Being the entity of the department that's supposed to look at people with disabilities, as I said. Of course, we also had to put our eyes on the point that the department has shifted from what people would have called manpower before, where just look at the regulation of the labor market. But there is an employment aspect that has been put to the department, hence called employment and labor, which then has got the responsibility of coordinating your public employment also in that scope. So we have looked at those from the point of the committee. Of course, with the main program being the labor activation program, which looks at employability, where you look at skills and employment. Then also look at TERS side of things, where you look at preserving the jobs that are there when companies are experiencing problems. We also look at the point of entrepreneurship as another option to ensure that there is job creation that happens with entrepreneurs that have got ideas and so on. So the LAP
Yes.
has been one area we thought we should lift as a committee from the legacy report, because there's not been spending. If you were to look at figures over time, 2017 up until probably 2024, that you'll budget huge, but the spending is not, that much. So we had to look at those as the main highlights on the legacy report, and that the committee therefore assist with that.
And of course, Chair, this is a conversation that is open to the public as well. And we've received a WhatsApp text from Uleboheng. And the question is, Chairperson, which law that protects workers at the stores, for example, your retailers, which law is that? Because many of them are forced to make tea for managers, and they do not have permanent employment. And also issues such as lunchtime, the time that they have for lunchtime is quite small. So the question here is, which laws protect workers in this instance?
Look, as a starting point, the Labour Relations Act would apply in terms of managing the relations as it states. But this also borders on the conditions of employment. And those conditions have to be clarified as such. But we do know, though, that part of the reason you have got inspections that get to happen, it is because whilst the laws may be there, you'll still have those that transgress those laws and would not implement them. And you'll find that you'll do something that's really not in the conditions of your employment as such, and probably out of fear to lose the jobs. People will not raise these matters in that score. So that will be really the point to make there. And I know I'm saying this point knowingly that it is not possible to have inspectors everywhere, given the numbers of inspectors that we have. But when these matters get to be reported, that's also where unannounced inspections come in. As you would have seen in the hospitality space, it will be because people do come up and tip the department, and therefore they can look at the conditions, including safety conditions from a point of occupational health and safety.
And of course then, Chair, we were talking about the legacy issues that the committee is now grappling with. Can you then briefly explain that since the establishment of this committee and since the establishment of the 7th administration, what are some of the committee's achievements?
Of course, if one was to start with the UIF and the compensation fund, like I said, we are looking at those matters from the point of what the Auditor General would have said. You would remember that as it gets to the UIF, just briefly, at the time of implementation of TERS, during the COVID period as an intervention, given that people were not getting to work and all that, a lot happened there, probably in the implementation, to a point where there will be issues about money that can't be accounted for. So there has been pressure from a point of oversight that was adopted in the 6th Parliament, so-called follow the money program, that we must see action happening there. There's progress that gets to be reported, that those matters get to be investigated. You also get to know that even from members who have got interest in the space, who are working there, as they report to the committee where people will come and complain to them that we have received letters from auditors. We need to account for what we received or didn't receive. As you would know, in some instances, employers may have received the money, but workers will still complain that there's never been payments therefore. So there is that follow the money. We are making the point that something gets to be done in that regard. So for us, that's an improvement there. But the second thing is that the UIF, with that has happened, it also affected how they are submitting their financial statements to the Auditor General. So that's for some time that they've not been able to meet the timelines. They are beginning to do that at this point, at least from the reports that we're able to get.
Okay.
Of course, on the labor activation program, like I'm saying, if you take the record from 2017 coming to the 2023-2024, you would see that the spending has not been that good in terms of the uptake of those people with ideas on what needs to be done from a point of training people and so on. But also from the side of what impact can we make, the ministry in the 7th Parliament has also taken heed of what the committee would have raised, and we're happy that that gets to be implemented on LAP, that we shouldn't train people just to train them.
Yeah.
But there must be at least a demonstration that as you put money, because the money for the UIF is that of the workers and the employers making that contribution to cushion them in the future, that you are able to create jobs, because once you do that, then they are able to contribute back to the fund in that way. So you need to have a demonstration, therefore, that you are able to train people this number, but you are also able to say what are the possible placements of these people, and if that doesn't happen, at least in a 24 months period, you'll be able to still keep them at least getting some payments, because that income is important to them, not just the exposure, of course, that comes with it for those that need experiential learning in that way. So you have that, and this, therefore, yes, would have delayed a bit because we're still dealing with legacy projects that we needed to approve.
Yes.
But what also gets to be introduced then would have been not just a due diligence but probability test, that whatever people put up, does it make sense? But also, do they really exist? And the numbers that they put up, so that you are not told that you will train 5,000 people, but it doesn't make sense in a small space. And in fact, you are training probably 500, and the 4.5 is just a claim that you make. So those systems that get to be put in place help. And I can say that from a spending point of view now, there is quite a huge uptick. Already the ministry has started right from January this year, as you would know.
Yes.
In Western Cape here particularly. This was the launch province, and then the Eastern Cape, the Northwest, and that, the Mpumalanga, in a way that helps to reactivate the program, because the program is a noble one. It's just that probably the mishandling in the past will give it a bad name. And as the committee side from the Oversight, we're keeping an eye on that. So that even those that are discredited, like it was the case with the portfolio committee today, where members would say, but we do know that this one that you have given, this work, has a record elsewhere within the state. And how are you going to be sure that we would not have the same things? So at least that area, there is improvement. So I'll end there on the UIF. Compensation fund, the same, very important. That's an area where you also had situations where payments, when they are made, just at the verge of getting to the account, it gets to be diverted to another account, that they must now put systems in place so that those do not happen. And that has also improved on their ability to submit in terms of financial statement, because that's another state-owned that has not been submitting over time. But we are also trying to ensure that there's fast tracking of the unbundling process for the CF and the UIF, looking at options that will make them to be quite effective. Because if you were to take, for example, the CF, which is the compensation fund, if you are dealing with medical and all that, the sense would be that you should probably operate at the level where medical aids would operate. But if you are attracting people at the level of just being employees of the state, just even from the point of incentives, you may not attract the same people, and that's why we look at that. So we have got at least the first report from a workshop, and the second report that says also working with GTEC and so on, that we are making progress. So the expectation is that we should still be able to do that within the term of office, of course, without ruling out that for everything that you do, there may also be legal challenges that get to come up. But if you were to say intentionally, it's deliberate that this must still be addressed in the term of office. So we think, therefore, we are making progress on those matters.
And of course, the conversation continues right here on Parliament TV with the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour. And of course, join the conversation. Tell us what you think about the employment equity, and how it affects you as an employer or as a prospective employer that wants to get into employment. And of course, you can do that by contacting us on 073 444 9810. And that is 073 444 9810. And of course, the Employment Equity Amendment Act of 2022 was signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa on the 6th of April 2023 and subsequently published in the Government Gazette on the 14th of April 2023. However, the act did not come into immediate effect. The President proclaimed on the 1st of January 2025 as the effective date for the amendments as announced in the Government Gazette of the 12th of November 2024. And with that, the regulations of the General Administration and the sector numerical EE targets were published on the 15th of April 2025, and they have been an issue of contention. Now, the committee has emphasized the need for more effective implementation strategies and called for increased collaboration between stakeholders to address systematic challenges hindering transformation. Of course, again, please give us a call on WhatsApp or even send us a text if you are a little bit shy and you don't want to have your say right here live on Parliament TV at 073 444 9810. It is your parliament, your voice, your future, and these are issues that affect you on a daily basis. Now, Chairperson, of course, now we've talked about the role of the committee, your achievements as the committee, and some of the legacy issues that the committee has adopted and has grappled with thus far, and still grappling with. Now, as we focus on the Employment Equity Amendment Act, what tangible progress then has the committee observed since it came into effect on the 1st of January 2025?
Look, from where we are as the committee, and this is informed by the recent report that we have been presented with on the 14th of May by the department, is that from there, it's quite clear that the road is still quite long, because the self-regulation that has existed since the Act would have been enacted has not given us the results that we thought would have. And the view of the committee, therefore, is that that voluntary approach cannot really drive the transformation progress that we need. As I say, this is backed by evidence when you look at the transformation at different levels in that score. So that's really how we would look at it. This does not take away, though, those that may have done quite well in trying to meet their own targets. But you look at it overall.
Yes.
Because I think from where one looks at it, is that if we were to put the spectacles of those that have been discriminated against before, the progress is really measured on how they are making progress themselves and feel that in their work
Yes.
spaces. And I'm saying, at least from that report, it doesn't look good. And for that reason, it therefore justifies the amendments
Okay.
that have been made in the law, in particular Section 15, capital letter A, where it really gives the minister what others would say some teeth,
Yes.
to say, look, you couldn't do it yourselves,
So now.
but will help you to be able to do what you're supposed to do by setting up the targets in that way. So I think that's for me the summary, is that really slow progress
Yeah.
from what we see, without undermining the efforts
The
of those
efforts.
that have tried to do. And I'm saying this because somebody will easily say, but if you make a comparison between private sector and the public sector, one has got a bit of progress, whilst the other doesn't. And I'm saying you look at it in totality,
Yes,
and
yes.
say, but where is the majority of the people?
And we'll
is
carry
at
on
this
with
time.
that, Chair. We have a caller. Namhla, you're live on Parliament TV and 30 radio stations. How are you?
I'm Nomsa.
Nomsa, hi. Sorry for that. Yes, Nomsa, you're live. Please ask the chairperson a question.
Okay, I have a question and a comment to the chairperson.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, firstly, good evening.
Evening, Namsa.
And I have three points. One, I just want to congratulate the chairperson, Mr. Maneli, for the contribution which they are having as a committee in the 7th and administration. At least you can see their progress.
We appreciate
My proposal, firstly, was that can they fast track and encourage the Department of Labor to employ those N6 human resource management students from the TVET colleges, and also those students who have done a diploma or degree in the labor relations in university, and employ them as labor inspectors so that they can stabilize and monitor the compliance in the small MMEs. And this will also help the country in the tax, in the form of revenue, and also it can also alleviate the high levels of employment in the youth. And lastly, and we can see that is their work in the activation, that is the program. And to that effect, we also have a new company which have established, and it's an assembled plant for EVs. But we are still waiting, that is for the contract with the partner in China. We also applied, that is the Department of Labor, for that is the funding. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nomsa. Chairperson, and of course I will say congratulations to Nomsa. I mean, taking up a business is not child's play. And with that, Chair, and of course I think it's an important factor, especially looking at the fact that unemployment is such a huge issue in South Africa. She spoke about how the committee is ensuring that the department fast tracks the employment of students or graduates rather, from TVET colleges and those that have diplomas in HR and labor relations, and ensuring that they become labor inspectors. And I'm sure that would be something that would help with regards to labor inspectors, because you did mention earlier that there is a problem there with regards to having enough labor inspectors.
No, thanks, and I'm really humbled by the congratulatory part.
Yes.
That we have to keep doing better. But getting quickly on this point, probably another progress that has been made in this term of ensuring that as part of this employability I talked about from the part of the UIF funding, the ministry would have briefed the committee in the department that we would be looking at about 20,000 interns in particular.
Okay.
Because a lot of them, whilst they may have the qualifications, they also need experiential learning in that.
Yes.
As a way of augmenting the inspectorate and enforcement services that we render from the department. That would have been advertised in case Umamunomsa would have not seen that. And they are now busy with the sifting processes, starting from capturing and ensuring that at least if all works well, 20,000 is quite a lot. You'll probably do 10,000 in this financial year as it has already started. And the other financial year getting the others on board. As this is done appreciating the fiscal challenges and the wage bill and so on. So that's why it's also taken from the UIF side of things, so that we are able to ensure that there's compliance, because with that compliance, we are also ensuring job creation happens, but under fair conditions that are in line with our labor regulations. So in that score, I would say that not just those that have done HR, I think we should be concerned about unemployed graduates that are out there who can still play a role and have this opportunity to be exposed in terms of the work. So the department under the ministry is already on that point. And we continue as members to raise this point. And I would want to indeed encourage them whenever these opportunities are put out there to take the opportunity of making the necessary applications. I know on this one in particular, like I said, it's a close because it had a closing date and they are still busy with that. And surely those who make it would use it as an opportunity to contribute to the country, especially as it relates to inspections. Once again, I'm cautioning that even with bringing those interns, it doesn't mean for every company there would be an inspector that's sitting there, which is why it's important, therefore, that the advocacy programs must still continue, where we get people to also voluntarily comply in a way that assists the nation. And it is also in their best interest to do so. So that even if there are those inspections that come, you'll be the first to say, please inspect me so that I improve on areas that I may have not done well. And lastly, on the part about having made the application for the LAP, depending from where, because I couldn't hear saying the actual province. As I've indicated, in the other provinces, yes, there's been the launch. Gauteng was to be done as an example, but it had to stall a bit for one simple reason, that which is simple, yes, but very important, is that having launched in the other provinces, you need to also know what could be the problems that are emerging in the course of implementation. And I made earlier about an example where you would have a labor center and people go there on the basis that they protest for something else, a stipend. That is related to the LAP that was launched in Mpumalanga. So this gives then the department to also go back and look what else needs to be done to help these that have come up to partner with the department in this unemployment reduction program, right? So once that is cleared, then they go back to launch those applications that have been sifted. And I want to believe that when the business plan is bankable, it should be very difficult not to approve that complies with everything else, including the fact that you will be able to place people to the labor market post the training, so that it's not just the training. So one really appreciates the initiatives from entrepreneurs on the ground, in particular because it's a woman, as we deal with employment equity.
Yes, Chair. And of course, Chair, we have a text from Snazo, and she's a listener from Mdantsane FM, and the question is, are these labor laws implemented in businesses that are owned and managed by foreign internationals where they employ local people, especially with regards to UIF?
The understanding that we have is that people, when they come and trade with us, they have to obey the laws of the country. And when they sign up to invest in the space, it is because they've also looked at the regulatory environment in the space. So as far as it relates to employment or labor relations in the country, we have the laws as I've spoken to them. And that applies too for as long people are in contractual agreement. Secondly, even with the employees, and this is how the Department of Labor explains this part all the time, is that sometimes even if it's people that are legally employed, even if they come from outside of the space, the first thing is to look at them as employees who are in employment and have contract, right? And everything else then would also follow, because you are treating them with that status first. And I think that's what other countries will do, even with us, who may have people elsewhere, that you must do things that are according to the law. And once you break the laws of the country, you get to be tackled. And there is at least an example of what you would have seen with a Chinese company that was caught breaking a lot of laws in the country. And they were treated the same way in terms of what the law expects, that you deal with those that are undocumented, but you never leave the employer behind, because you would have taken into account at the time of recruitment that you follow the laws of the country. But as I said, because we do not have people everywhere, it's important, as I said, where we are able to also ensure that the laws of the country are observed. And we can give tip-offs, as I say, to the department, and that's where these unannounced inspections would have come. And this has been made at least public, even at the time of the hospitality. It was because also the employees came out to indicate the conditions that they work under, and they were still protected in that it was unannounced, and they were dealt with in that way. Thank you.
And that is active citizenship that the chairperson is talking about, that you can tip off the Labour Department as well if you know of such issues and contraventions against the laws and regulations of the Republic. Now, Chair, we have a voice note from Simpiwe who has a question for you. Let's listen to that.
Ngifisa ukwazi ukuthi ikhona imithetho noma inyathelo ezithathelwa inkampani ezisuke zingayilandeli i-Employment Equity Act.
Alrighty. So, Chairperson, Simpiwe just wants to know, are there any consequences with regards to companies or enterprises that are non-complying with the Employment Equity Act?
Yes, as you know, in terms of our laws and regulations, there are directives that get to be issued for non-compliance. Of course, it may also get to situations where you get to be fined of 5 million to 2% of your turnover in that score. But as you would know, some of the directives, they get to be ignored, just like in the other enforcement you do for other acts. And that could then, in this case, get to a labor court situation where then the matter gets to be tried as such. But the other thing is really that that will also limit their chances because they would then not have these compliance certificates on employment equity, and some of them may also want to trade with the state that seeks to enforce the same.
Yes.
And that may be quite limiting. So bengithi-ke zikhona izinyathelo eziye zithathwe ezikhona emthethweni lapho kuba khona nama-fines enziwayo. Kodwa-ke ngisayibethelela lento ukuthi asenze sure ukuthi uhulumeni uyaziswa ngalokhu through i-department ukuze-ke siyazi ukuthi mase siriphotile siyazi futhi nokuthi makungenzeki lutho nama-committees eParliament uyakwazi ukuwa-petitiona ukuthi there's this problem, it has been reported, but there's no action that gets to be taken. Like I said, we have an obligation to have public participation in the work that we do in Parliament.
And with that, we have Tshepo on the WhatsApp line. Tshepo, you are live on Parliament TV and 30 community radio stations all over the Republic. Please, what is your question to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour?
Thank you so much. Good evening to you and to the listeners. I'm listening to Kofi FM 97.2 in Johannesburg. So, in part, I think my question has been answered by or the voice that was sent earlier on. However, let me go to another question I wanted to check here. Within communities that we are broadcasting for ESCO PPFM, classified previously as colored communities, the issue of employment equity, if you were to explain to those listeners in colored communities how employment equity is actually going to benefit them, Chairperson, I think that would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Chairperson, the issue here is employment equity, specifically with regards to the colored community and how this is going to benefit them. Okay,
thank you for that question from Kofi FM.
Yes.
Of course, with regard to this part, you would notice that the regulations taking this from the Act, they are designated groups. And these designated groups, like I said, it's about addressing that liquors of the past and create that equity. The colored people would fall amongst the blacks in general. And therefore, as you look at this report, that we received as the committee, you would also see that even in that space, they are also counted on how they need to be progressing and how they've progressed in this regard. And they themselves would be falling a bit short, especially when you get to the top and senior management level of the different sectors.
Yes.
So in that score, they stand to benefit in this regard, depending, as I said, on the representation in each of the sectors. But they fall in those designated groups, the blacks in general.
Yeah.
As you know, that will speak to African, Indian, as well as the coloreds. Of course, understanding, as I say, our history, because it's very important. The Constitution recognizes it from its preamble that there's been imbalances that have been created by our past, and we commit to address the imbalances of the past. So the employment equity gets to be one legal instrument to do that.
Now, with that, Chair, we have another text on our WhatsApp line, and this is from Rona. And she says, I would like to ask, how does these labor laws affect foreign employees? Because they seem to not care.
With regard to employees, the foreign employees,
Yes.
you notice from the report that about 2.8% of people at that senior and top level will be foreign nationals. It doesn't mean that they are not there as you get down.
Yeah.
Right, they're there. I think for me, it's different levels, and this is how the committee looked at this matter when we're dealing with this report. Is that the department needs to fast track the National Labour Migration Policy.
Yes.
As well as the amendment to the Employment Services Act, which is now the Employment Services Amendment Bill. And we're happy that this has now gone through Cabinet and that it will now be presented to Parliament so that our process now then kicks in, where we'll have then public participation that gives an opportunity even to Rona to really make the contribution in shaping up that law. Because that law, as we have been presented briefly as it was taking its route back to NETLEC as part of our induction, would have been that it doesn't only look at undocumented, it also look at those that are documented. And I can tell you from this report, the committee was very clear that we need to make it clear that if you are bringing in scarce skills, surely there must be a plan on how you are skilling your locals to be able to have this skill addressed. Secondly, it also means that at least as it relates to areas of the unskilled and the semi-skilled, no amount of reasoning there would be given when South Africans are available to do so. So they said this is something that must be looked at because it can unlock a number of jobs for the locals to come on board. But of course, the undocumented ones, it gets to be a different matter. It gets to be an immigration issue where you are now breaking the laws as it relates to Home Affairs. So this is what happens even when we do our oversight work. We ensure that it's multidisciplinary because employment and labor cannot enforce immigration. It must be done by Home Affairs. So you would need that collaboration with all these departments to ensure that that part is addressed. But as I say, I'm really doing this before we even put the public notice to get the comments that South Africans must be ready to engage in that discussion to shape the laws of the country, especially as it relates to this matter with the unemployment situation we have in the country.
So the work is being done by the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour. Now, Chair, we have a voice note from Ubeki. Let's hear what he has to say.
Sanibonani studio. Molweni Chairperson. Khuluma noBheki apha kaNyamazane. Ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi abasebenzi niyakhona ukuthatha ikhalo zabo mhlambe kuma retailers njenge committee mhlamba abasebenzi baphatheka kabi abake basebenza ama overtime bangakaqedanga abaye endlini kanti isikhathi sokushayisa esicontract isikhathi esinje tholakala ukuthi badonsa nzima ngenxa yokuthi unemployment rate is very high in South Africa. So they end up working abnormal hours. How do you monitor those retailers, more especially if I may ask about retailers, how do you monitor them so that you can see maybe these are standard hours or hours that are being agreed on that particular contract. Funa nje ukuthola lapho ubheki ngimamele kaNyamazane FM. Sithanda ukubonga uhlelo lumnandi, siyafunda kakhulu nabantu ngiyathemba ukuthi bayezwa nje umphakathi. Siphinde sibonga nokwaNyamazane FM. Siyabonga.
Siyabonga, Bheki. Chair, of course, this issue is the second time it's coming up with regards to retailers. And now this time, Bheki focuses on the working hours. That you have employees that are employed by retailers. The contract says this amount of time. However, you find that this person is working way over time. How is this being addressed, and how does the committee then monitor that?
Asibonge kubheki ngombuzo wakhe nanjengoba besishilo ngaphambilini ukuthi lezi zinto kusho ukuthi kophula umthetho singathi ke conditions of employment se workers sesinikezile ke enye chance ethi i-tip off iyasiza ngoba uzothola ukuthi kwesinye isikhathi akukhona union kwenye i-environment and therefore kwesinye isikhathi ke lapho kukhona ama-union and ase angatholi ukuthi i-employers balalele baye nabo bayenze lento ukuthi ba-informe ne-department ye-labor ukuthi ikwazi ukwenza lama-unannounced inspections.
Yes.
Akufanelekile ke ukuthi abantu bawuphule umthetho. Just to make the example of one oversight that we did, which was almost similar. And for me, it was never been in such inspections. I was very happy on how thorough the inspectors get to do their work, because they also look at those contracts physically, look at them. They look at the pay slips, whether this also goes in line. They also, like members will do, to interview the workers.
Yes, yes.
And when there's contravention, as I say, contravention notices would come in, and then there's monitoring that at least that has been seen as a problem is getting addressed. And like I'm saying, the problem is that sometimes people are afraid to engage. I mean, even when you are in the oversight,
yes,
you'll find that some of the workers may not want to engage for fear of reprisal that would come out of such engagement. But like I'm saying, at least it does help to just be specific about the information that you want to give, and as part of the tip-off. So the committee in that way does help in that even those that get to be referred to our members,
yes,
some of them get to be raised in the committee itself, but we do refer, because we are not the executing authority, refer them to the relevant people and make it a point that we get feedback on the actions that they've taken. And I'm sure from reports, quarterly reports that we get, the inspectorate also appreciates the support that's given to them, and you see it from the point of performance that is in most cases overachieving from what they used to put as targets on the work to be done. So you should know that's the reason there are those laws. They must be enforced, and that's why we have got the inspectorate to ensure where enforcement needs to be done, it is done.
Now, with that then, Chair, of course, earlier on we alluded to how transformation is not being seen, especially in senior and top-level management, whether it's within the public sector and even within the private sector. What were some of the challenges that the department reported and highlighted to the committee that perpetuate the problem, and how does it plan to address the issue?
I think there's quite a number, especially as it relates to employment equity.
Yes.
Is that firstly the part about the capacity? I think we have spoken to it. That the fact that you can't have the inspectors everywhere, people will also take
chances.
The chances of not doing it to a point that even when they've given you misleading information, then there will be problems of making every follow-up as it is supposed to be. But the other thing really is that, like I said, once you have got self-regulation, you depend on the will of those that need to implement. And the lack of that will then give you the results that you have. Because if there is the will, surely you will get into an engagement, because there are options that are available where you are able to say, for example, look, the economy is such that it's difficult to even maintain what I have, right? But even that, you can easily test it with people that are in the same space, affected by the same conditions, and why those would be proceeding. From where we are, really, it is an issue that, because it's been self-regulation, less time to look at it from a point of inspections, because also the capacity, but at the same time, as I say, it is a point that others in that will, it's about some resistance, where we will give it names, whether it's racial and all that, when in fact there is no difference, like I'm saying, in what is put there to what the history would be, because the national oppression has been on the basis of race, gender, and class. And the fault lines today are about poverty, unemployment, and inequality linked to that national oppression. And these instruments, therefore, if we're all willing to make them work, would be doing quite a lot to ensure that we change that complexion, so that those that didn't have the chance through these laws could, in their lived reality in the workplace, see that inclusivity, and that you will be given a fair chance to succeed in that space, because of what you can be able to contribute. Not that your race or your gender or your disability will be an issue for you not to progress.
Okay. Now with that, Chair, we have a voice note from Leah. Let's hear what she has to say to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour.
Good day, I'm listening through Zwanele FM. I only have one question, and that is, how often do you visit workplaces to make sure that they comply to all industry or laws and such?
Right, straight to the point. How often, Chairperson, are these inspections made? And I guess with regards to the committee, then, how often is the oversight?
Okay. With regard to the department, you would expect that the frequency will be, at least because in every financial year, there would be different things that happen.
Yes.
But like I said, I was the one to first admit that the capacity that you have would not make that possible all the time. And from a committee point of view, as you know, we do the oversight. And as we do the oversight, it is based on the parliamentary program, but we will not be able to go to every institution. So we would target a particular space or sector of the economy. Just as I say, as complementary though, to the work of the inspectorate that needs to be doing that more regular than we would do, because there are functionaries that are employed to do that task. We are oversighting the work that they do. We are just hopeful from what the department has presented, firstly on the part of the interns that I referred to, which will increase the numbers. But like I said, it will still not mean you will have an inspector in every institution. Therefore, it also calls for the use of technology. And it is for that reason that even as they implement this employment equity now, you are starting to see the introduction of what you will call administrative inspections, in that people will do this online, make the submissions, and as a way of taking care of that, then work with the inspectors.
Chair, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
And of course, that was the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour, Mr. Boyce Maneli, providing insight on Parliament's engagements in working to achieve employment equity within the Republic. Now, we have come to the end of another exciting show. And of course, Parliament continues to fulfill its constitutional responsibilities and ensure that you get what you deserve as a citizen of this country. Now, to stay informed about Parliament's engagements, follow, like, and subscribe on all social media platforms at Parliament of RSA, and visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. After all, it is your Parliament, your voice, your future. Practice active citizenship and be involved with the work of the Portfolio Committee. I am Tshepo Morie, and thank you for listening and for watching from myself and the team behind the scenes. Bye-bye.